"We have to sit across a table from him," I said, "in 5 days, and ask him to let us live. And I have to perform a marriage and fake solvency and not let the man who killed my father see a single thing move." Empire of Ashes, Episode 12, The Head of the Table, written by Mia. Dario. I'd spent 8 months building a wall around one name, and my wife took it apart with a bank statement in 4 days. Standing in my father's study at midnight, I understood I had exactly 2 choices left. Lie to her again, and lose her for good, because Lena Russo can smell a managed truth at 40 paces, and she'd never forgive a third one. Or tell her, and start the clock that ends with her in the harbor. I'm not my father. I keep proving it at the worst possible moments, at the worst possible cost. My father would have managed this perfectly. He'd have let her chase the account into a dead end he'd built in advance, let her exhaust the thread, kept her safe and ignorant and his forever, and never lost a single night's sleep, because to Salvatore Marchetti, love was just the most efficient leash, and an ignorant wife was a loyal one. I watched him run my mother that way for 20 years. I swore, on the day we buried her, that I would never run a person I loved the way he ran the businesses. And here I was, 8 months married, having done exactly that, kept Lena in the dark and called it protection, the way he kept everyone in the dark and called it love. The only thing that made me different from my father in the end was that when she caught me at it, I stopped. He never stopped. He died never having stopped. I intended to do at least that one thing better than the man whose chair I was sitting in, even if it killed us both. I told her, "Put the account away and listen to me, because I'm going to give you the name, and then I'm going to need you to be the smartest you have ever been in your life. And you have been very, very smart." I poured 2 drinks, because my hands needed something to do that wasn't reaching for her. The account belongs to a man you're going to meet in 5 days. He'll be sitting at the head of the commission table when we walk in to beg for our lives. He is the most powerful Don in this city. He was my father's patron for 30 years. And the reason your father's evidence was worth killing for is that it didn't only expose Salvatore. She went very still, the accountant arriving at the sum.
"It exposed him," she said.
It exposed him. The twice promised collateral my father played the families with, half of it was promised to the commission, and the commission seat that holds that paper is his. Your father's book proves that the man who runs this city has been quietly insolvent on stolen collateral for years, hiding behind Salvatore the way Salvatore hid behind everyone else. I made myself say the name out loud for the first time in 8 months. Aldo Russo didn't die for what he found out about the Marchettis, Lena. He died for what he found out about Don Vittorio Greco. My father just got to do the paperwork and pocket the convenience. You have to understand what Greco is to understand why I built a wall around the name instead of a war. The Falcones are killers. You can fight killers. The commission is a council. You can outvote a council, or buy it, or split it down the middle. Greco is neither. Greco is the quiet at the center of all of it. The man who hasn't personally had to end anyone in 20 years because the city ends people for him to earn his goodwill before he ever has to ask. My father feared exactly one man on this earth and never once said the name above a whisper, and I spent my childhood thinking that was weakness. I was old before I understood it was the single piece of genuine wisdom Salvatore ever had. You do not move against Vittorio Greco. You do not let him learn you'd ever want to. You smile, and you pay, and you pray he never has cause to remember your name. And my wife had just spent 4 days carving our name into the one ledger he would burn a whole city to keep closed.
Lena.
I had hunted the wrong man for 3 years. Let me sit in that, because I've made everyone around me sit in their reckonings, and it's only fair I sit in mine. I gave my 20s to the Marchettis. I learned a dead man's businesses and married his son, and walked onto a killing floor, all of it aimed at Salvatore Marchetti, the monster who murdered my father. And Salvatore had been, it turned out, a middleman, a well-paid convenience. My father's actual killer had spent 3 years watching me wage war on the wrong family and had let me, because a Russo daughter strangling the Marchettis served him just fine, and a Russo daughter who knew the truth was a problem he'd solved the way he'd solved her father.
Don Vittorio Greco.
I knew the name the way everyone in the city knew it. The way you know the name of weather. The old man at the top. The one even the Falcons lowered their voices about. I'd lived in his blast radius my whole life and never once aimed at him, because my father's honest book pointed at Salvatore, and I trusted my father's book the way I trusted gravity. My father pointed me at Salvatore on purpose. I understood that too, sitting in the cold study, with the truth finally whole. The honest book was real, but Aldo Russo, careful to the very end, had aimed his daughter's grief at the safer target, the one who couldn't reach as far, because he'd rather I spend my whole life avenging him on a Marchetti and live than aim at Greco and die. Even his evidence was a kind of protection. Even dead, my father was still trying to keep me pointed away from the thing that would kill me. And I just turned and looked straight at it anyway. Of course I had. He raised me to follow the money. He should have known the money would always, eventually, lead me to the man at the top of it. I thought about being angry at him for it, for aiming me wrong, for the 3 wasted years, for dying with a secret that left me hunting a corpse while his real killer poured wine across the city and watched. I tried the anger on, the way I'd worn it for 3 years like a good coat. It didn't fit anymore. Because I understood now, the way I'd understood the deal book, that every dishonest thing my father did at the end, he did out of the same exhausted love, that he'd rather I have a smaller enemy and a longer life than the whole truth and an early grave. He'd been wrong. He'd been a father, which in this city is frequently the same thing as wrong. And I forgave him for it sitting in that cold study, completely, the way I had never once been able to forgive the clean martyr I'd invented in his place. The clean martyr never made a mistake to forgive. The real one made nothing but, and the mistakes were all love, and a flawed father you can forgive is worth 10 perfect ones you can only avenge. We have to sit across a table from him, I said, in 5 days, and ask him to let us live. And I have to perform a marriage and fake solvency and not let the man who killed my father see a single thing move behind my eyes. Yes. And if he reads me, if he sees for 1 second that I know, he kills all of us. Dario said it flatly, which was a mercy. You, me, Sophia, Nico, the whole house. He's done it for less. He's very good at it, and he is never caught because he owns the men who'd catch him. He set down his untouched drink. So now you know why I kept it in a safe. It was never about controlling you, Lena. It was that the only thing keeping you alive was Greco believing you were exactly what you looked like, a grieving girl who blamed the Marchettis. The day you know the truth is the day you become your father, walking around the city with a dangerous fact in your chest. And I have already buried one person He stopped. The glass we'd been not breaking for 3 months hung between us, thinner than it had ever been.
Say it, I said.
I have already buried one person I loved because of what they knew. I'm not doing it twice. His voice had gone rough in a way I'd never heard from him. I'd burn the empire down first. I'd hand Greco the keys and walk you out of the city tonight and let the whole thing rot, gladly. And the only reason I haven't is that he'd find us, and the only way you live is if we win that room. His dark eyes were terrible and open. I married you for the photographs, and I'd burn the photographs and the frame and the whole dynasty in them to keep you out of that harbor. When did that happen to me? I would genuinely like to know the exact moment it happened to me. And the glass broke. I don't know which of us crossed the room. I've decided, the way I decided about the cannery, that it doesn't matter. That after 3 months of a marriage we performed into truth, and a week of lies we'd finally set down, and a night that turned my whole life inside out, we met in the middle of his dead father's study, and stopped pretending the wanting was a transaction. He kissed me like a man who'd been managing himself for 11 weeks and had run, finally and completely, out of discipline. I kissed him back like the wolf I'd made of myself in the cannery, and the girl still underneath it, both at once. No performance left in either of us. His hands were in my hair, and mine were fisted in his shirt, and the books and the killers and Don Vittorio Greco all went quiet for the length of one true thing. When we broke apart, we were both unsteady, foreheads together, breathing the same ruined air. That was the stupidest thing we've ever done, I said, with a week of killers ahead of us. I know. Dario didn't let go. His thumb traced my jaw, like he was confirming I was real. Do it again. I want to be honest about that night the way I've been honest about all of it. We didn't stop at the once. 3 months of pretending, 3 months of a wanting weed each filed under strategy, and the dam doesn't half break. There are things I'll keep for myself. A marriage gets to have one room with the door closed, but I'll say this much because it's the truest thing in this whole account. The first time my husband and I were honest with our bodies was the first time neither of us was performing anything at all in a house built entirely on performance, and it undid us both. We'd been married 11 weeks. It was, in every way that counted, our wedding night. And the strange thing, the thing I keep, the thing I'd never tell Sophia or Nico or anyone who thinks they know what my marriage is that the wanting wasn't even the largest part of it. The largest part was after. Lying in the dark of a house I'd married into as a weapon, the man I'd come to destroy asleep with his arm heavy across me, both of us finally out of lies and out of moves and out of the strength to perform a single thing, and feeling, for the first time since my father died, something I'd forgotten the shape of so completely that it took me an hour in the dark to find its name. Safe. I felt safe. In the most dangerous house in the most dangerous city of my life, beside a man whose family killed mine, with the actual murder 5 days and 1 dinner away, I felt, for one whole night, like nothing in the world could reach me. My father spent his entire life trying to buy me that feeling and never managed it. I found it by accident, in the enemy's bed, the week before everything came due. The heart is an idiot. Mine especially. Dario. We didn't get the rest of it. Nico knocked once and came in without waiting, which he never does, and his face was the careful blank he wears over bad news. A phone in one hand, an envelope in the other. Cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind of paper that costs more than most men's cars. Came by hand, Nico said. A driver. Greco's driver. I know the car. He set it on the desk between us. And I saw the way he looked at Lena when he said it, and I understood that Nico knew more than he'd ever said. Too. that every man in this house had been managing her, addressed to both of you, by name. Lena picked it up before I could. She always will. The hand on the front was old-fashioned, beautiful, certain. The hand of a man who has never once in his life been rushed. To Dario Marchetti and to Mrs. Marchetti, née Russo. I watched the née Russo go through her like cold water. The name she'd buried. The name the entire marriage was built on hiding. Written out in the murderer's own hand, easy as weather. Proof, before she even opened it, that Don Vittorio Greco had known exactly who she was since before she ever walked into this city. That he'd watched Aldo Russo's daughter marry into the Marchettis and said nothing, and let her run her little war because it amused him, or served him, or both. She opened it, one line under a crest older than the country. Bring your clever wife to dinner Thursday, before the others. We have so much to discuss, the three of us, and your late father, Lena, whom I knew very well. She set it down with a steadiness that cost her everything, and I loved her so much in that moment, and was so afraid that I could not tell the two feelings apart.
He knows, she said.
Quiet. Not a question. He's known the whole time. Before the wedding.
Before the cannery.
He watched Aldo Russo's daughter marry into the family he wears like a glove, and he let it happen because she stopped, and I watched her father's mind finish the thought for her, cold and fast and merciless even now. Because a Russo and a Marchetti in the same bed are two loose ends he can tie off with a single knot whenever it happens to suit him. We didn't hide a thing from him, Dario. We arranged ourselves for his convenience. The whole marriage. We've been a folder on that old man's desk since the day we signed the license. The man who killed her father had just invited us to dinner, and he'd signed it like a man who already knew he'd won. To be continued. That was episode 12 of Empire of Ashes. If this one has its hooks in you, the next episode is already waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The complete book is on Amazon, and early episodes plus Dario POV bonus scenes are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I'm Mia.
Thank you for listening.